everyone. It's good to see you all here. This is the Wednesday morning, April 28th, 2021 morning session of the Portland City Council. Good morning, Keelan. Could you please call the roll?
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Ryan.
Here.
Hardesty.
Here. Morning.
Knapp.
Here.
Rubio. Wheeler.
Here. Under Portland City Code and state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by video and teleconference, and the city has made several avenues available to the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel, eGovPDX, www.portlandoregon.gov/video, and channel 30. The public can also provide written testimony to the council by emailing the council clerk at cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. The council is taking these steps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to limit in-person contact and to promote physical distancing. The pandemic is an emergency that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare, which requires us to meet remotely by electronic communications. Thank you all for your patience, flexibility, and understanding as we manage through these challenging circumstances to conduct the city's business. Now we're going to hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good morning.
Good morning. To participate in city council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at portlandoregon.gov/auditor contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the City Council is holding electronic meetings. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you're a lobbyist. If you're representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When your time is up, the presiding officer will ask you to conclude. Disruptive conduct, such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or ejected from the remainder of the electronic meeting. Please be aware that all council meetings are recorded.
Thank you. First up is communications. Keelan, item number 273, please.
Request of Evelyn Whitlock to address council regarding health effects of Zenith.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Dr. Evelyn Whitlock. I'm a retired preventive medicine researcher. I live in North Portland, across from the industrial area where Zenith is located. First, I apologize for taking time from your busy calendar to give input on Zenith's pending land use compatibility statement, or LUX for short. We must bring these comments to the full City Council because we currently lack a process for public input into LUX. Please remedy this to allow routine public input into granting LUX going forward. Colleagues and fellow citizens have already outlined numerous health, safety, and equity concerns with Zenith's current operations and proposed expansions, which I will not reiterate, but let me restate the bottom line clearly. Zenith's transport and storage of dangerous fossil fuels and other combustibles are a clear danger to our city population, particularly our most vulnerable, and to our precious natural environment. These risks are made worse by the fact that Zenith has repeatedly behaved in ways that violate public trust. The city has a real opportunity now. You can and should deny Zenith the LUX that DEQ is requiring for Zenith's pending Title V air quality permit. Zenith's use of city land is incompatible with previous City Council resolutions and with the city's 2035 comprehensive plan. It is hard to see how Zenith's business that slipped into town under the radar in 2017 fits with our 5 guiding principles for the city's plan for a low carbon economic prosperity, human health, environmental health, equity, and resilience of our region and our people. Zenith's business is directly incompatible with many specific policies and goals in the 2035 plan. Here's one example. Policy 2.4 of the plan requires the city to effectively reduce disproportionate burdens, such as adverse environmental impacts on communities of color, low-income populations, and others impacted by city decisions. worsened air quality due to Zenith's diesel oil trains through the city, not to mention the risks of catastrophic fire, explosion, or other accidents already disproportionately impact our youngest, poorest, and most disadvantaged residents. Policy 2.4 also calls for current decisions to address disproportionate burdens resulting from previous decisions. Certainly, denying Zenith the LUX required for their continuing operation is an opportunity to right previous wrongs, however these occurred. In closing, while our city's best choice is to deny this LUX, I must also ask you to mitigate risks from any ongoing business in 3 ways. First, to the extent that Zenith continues operations, please require active third-party monitoring and disclosure of all their environmental and health risk-related activities. Second, require Zenith to put up sufficient bonds or financial equivalents to indemnify the city and its citizens in case of accident, explosion, fire, or spill within city borders. And third, require Zenith to help finance and prepare our local fire departments and emergency responders to adequately respond to fuel-related disasters. It is very likely that current services are woefully unprepared for what could be a devastating event. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here. Next individual, item 274, please.
Request of Susanna Kassouf to address council regarding effects of Zenith Energy, and they let us know that they are canceling their request.
Thank you. Next individual, please, 275.
Request of Joan Rothline to address council regarding Zenith.
Good morning. Joan, are you with us? Are you unmuted?
Here we go. My name is Dr. Joan Rothline, and I testify today as a member of the Stop Zenith Work Group of Cedar Action, Oregon PSR, and a resident of Northwest Portland. I'm a retired scientist from OHSU whose research and public policy work focused on the impacts of hazardous substances on the environment, the health and safety of at-risk populations, and our workers here in Oregon. In 2019, I became aware of the expanding operations at Zenith Energy and of transporting crude oil by train through our neighborhoods and on our rivers. I moved to Portland 30 years ago, raised 2 daughters, and I've been living in the same home that is only 7,000 steps, exactly 3 miles from the train yards and the front gate of Zenith Energy. The presence of Zenith is a huge public health and safety concern, as you know, for me and my neighbors. For 2 years, we've been organizing and talking within our communities about the critical risks and our opposition to Zenith. We've held public forums and presentations at many neighborhood association meetings throughout the city. People are worried, some are angry. Multnomah County reported that more than a quarter of the county's population lives within a half-a-mile evacuation zone along the train routes. In my Northwest District, there are multiple Portland public schools and many preschools. The school my kids attended, Chapman, is just across the street from me, and to repeat, 7,000 steps from Zenith. Multnomah County designated a half-mile distance as an immediate evacuation zone, but depending upon the blast ferocity, wind, weather, highly toxic smoke and noxious compounds could reach greater distances. Our Jewel Forest Park borders Zenith and could be destroyed from a fire following a derailment or worse. And don't forget, Zenith is built on an earthquake liquefaction zone. An oil spill from a rail or tanker could devastate our Willamette and Columbia rivers, and cleanup operations are questionable at best. I covered the BP oil spill and witnessed the pathetic attempts to clean up the mess with absorbent booms that look like giant baby diapers, and the dire effects continued 10 years later. Zenith is still operating under an out-of-date air quality permit intended for an asphalt company, but asphalt refining activities ended in 2006. Zenith purchased the facility in 2017 and within 1 year constructed 32 railcar offloading spots to increase its capacity. According to Zenith's emission reports, its oil throughput in 2018 was 14 million gallons, but it increased to 167 million gallons in 2019. That's an 11-fold increase. DEQ has determined that there's enough intensification and modification of the original permit to require a new LUX for the upcoming air quality permit. So the city just approved a LUX for the stormwater permit, but that still leaves you, including Commissioner Ryan, to decide on whether to approve the new LUX for an air quality permit. That gives Portland an opportunity to stop Zenith's transportation of crude oil through our neighborhoods. BDS can and should deny Zenith this new LUX when DEQ has determined necessary, which DEQ has determined necessary for their Title V air quality permit renewal. Lastly, this is Portland. I ask you, what are we doing being a hub for fossil fuel expansion during our climate crisis? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rothlein. Next up, item 276.
Request of Jessica Rojas to address council regarding the Zenith terminal.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Morning, Mayor, Council, or Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you all this morning. My name is Jessica Rojas, and I'm the current Executive Director at the Northeast Coalition of Neighborhoods. I identify as a mixed race Chicana. She and her are my pronouns. I was raised in Northeast Portland. I'm going to be blunt this morning because I'm supposed to be on vacation, but I can't rest no matter how far I get away from Portland, knowing that it's a matter of when, not if, our region will face a large-scale subduction zone earthquake. And it's a matter of when our leaders will decide to invest in our future wealth by protecting our community's public health today. I serve a geography that is way too close in proximity, along with all our neighbors in North and Northwest, to the actual site. And you've heard from so many citizens all the reasons why this permit needs to be denied. You heard from all the experts, all the statistics, all the facts that surround this industry who's not invested in our protection and likely will not be able to save us when the day comes when a natural disaster impacts not only our city, but our country in relation to the role our city plays in distributing commerce throughout the region. In my line of work, I see stricter regulations and on activities that are meant to improve livability. I see more barriers to operation for activities that are meant to improve our quality of life than this terminal. Our board has sent numerous letters and signed on so many times indicating that we are against the expansion of fossil fuel exportation in our region. And this council has made public environmental and racial equity statements that are completely counter to this expansion. We cannot have a livable future, especially for the most vulnerable communities. And I want you to think about St. John's, deep in St. John's, where all the affordable housing complex are. All those families, what will you do to protect them from a major blow up at Zenith? How will you protect emergency responders? How will you protect our economy, let alone our air quality? Today, I want you to know that I cannot rest on my long overdue vacation, nor will I ever when I return. And I will continue to fight until you do what is right. And I'm praying for you all that you will have the strength to exhibit a commitment to our community and our collective future for your grandchildren and for all of our future generations. I know you can do this, and I won't rest until it's seen through. So thank you for this time. I want you to know I believe in you guys that you can do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Thanks for taking some time from your vacation for your testimony. We appreciate that as well. Our last individual today for communications, please. Item number 277.
Request of Ted Gleichman to address council regarding earthquake risk in North Portland.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. I'm Ted Gleichman, an activist on energy and climate issues with Cedar Action. Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Hardesty, it's good to speak with you again. Your structural work for public health and safety through the first responder bureaus is unprecedented. Thank you. Commissioner Rubio, felicidades por su gran victoria en el año pasado. That was unprecedented. Commissioner Matz, I'm currently studying our struggles for racial justice, exemplified by the work of your friend and former colleague, Professor Peniel Joseph. The wisdom you bring to these issues is unprecedented, especially in combination with Commissioners Hardesty and Rubio. Commissioner Ryan, your integration with our robust nonprofit community is a vital asset for economic justice now. That is unprecedented. As is the fact that you and your husband live in North Portland. We're generic neighbors, about a mile apart. My wife and I live just north of Columbia Park. Also unprecedented is the certainty of catastrophic damage from the really big one. I'm singing the same tune here. The Cascadia earthquake will rupture at a magnitude of 8 or greater. As you know, that hasn't occurred since 1700, so this will be the largest and most deadly earthquake in United States history. We are 321 years into an occurrence cycle with a 240-year average. Here, all our 1,200 masonry buildings and many others will come down, and all the bridges except Tillicum. Worse, all the pipes carrying fracked methane gas will rupture, and the flammable fossil fuel tanks in the industrial waterfront will collapse. Any oil trains that happen to be here will derail, spill, and burn. We face unprecedented levels of fire and explosion, and the water mains will go unless we're lucky on the timing of the current rebuilding. Of course, oil trains and oil tank explosions and fires cannot be extinguished with water. In 1906, the about 6,000 people who died in San Francisco were almost all killed by the fires, not the earthquake. I'm sending you a little booklet about it. Cascadia will surpass that, but you have an unprecedented opportunity to lessen the blow here and create good union jobs by maximizing energy conversion at warp speed. Why not begin with the obvious lawbreaker on the BDS plate in front of you right now, the duplicitous Zenith oil terminal? It needs to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here. That concludes communications. Let's go to the consent agenda before we get to the time certain. Have any items been pulled off of the consent agenda, Keelan?
Yes, we've had one request for item 284.
Item 284 has been pulled from the consent agenda. Please call the roll on the remainder of the consent agenda.
Ryan,
Aye.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Maps.
Aye.
Rubio. Wheeler.
Aye. The consent agenda is adopted. We'll come back to 284 at the end of the regular agenda. We'll move to time certain. Item number 278, please.
Accept the quarterly Technology Oversight Committee report from the Chief Administrative Officer.
Colleagues, the Technology Oversight Committee is a citizen advisory committee that provides oversight for significant City of Portland technology projects. The committee reports to the council on a quarterly basis on the projects that it's currently overseeing. The report covers the activity from January through March of 2021. There were no major project developments for this period of time. The TOC is currently overseeing Revenue's Integrated Tax System project, but no other projects at this time. I'll now turn it over to our presenters. Ethan Sermo from the Office of Management and Finance is here to introduce our presenters and kick us off. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Ethan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Wheeler. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, everyone. We will be presenting the Technology Oversight Committee's first quarter report for 2021 today. You're going to be hearing from the Chief Technology Officer for the City of Portland. His name is Jeff Baer. He is also the Director of BTS. After Jeff speaks to you and talks about the presentation for the first quarter, you will be hearing from Diana Garcia, who is the representative for Commissioner Rubio. My name, for the record, is Ethan Sermo. I'm part of the OMF communications team. Sorry, I forgot that.
Excuse me, Mayor, if I may.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ethan. My apologies for interrupting. I just wanted to say that other than the mayor and I, most of my colleagues have never had a presentation from the Technology Oversight Committee. And so it would be helpful if you gave a little bit of history about why we have such a thing and what in the heck does it do as we get into your report for this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we will certainly get to that. We're actually planning on presenting something to that effect. So stay tuned. With that, Jeff, I believe I can hand it over to you.
All right, thank you, Ethan, and good morning, Mayor. Good morning, City Council members. As Ethan said, I'm Jeff Baer, I'm the Director of the Bureau of Technology Services, and with me today is Diana Garcia, and we're here to present the Technology Oversight Committee quarterly report to Council covering the months of January through March and provide updates that may not be covered during the reporting period, and also here to answer any questions that you may have as they come up. And Commissioner Hardesty, I'll provide some context or historical context at the conclusion of the report, if that's okay. Thank you. So you'll see good progress being made on the Integrated Tax System project, or ITS, as it's noted by rolling out new features under phase 2, or as it's noted in the report, R2. And the project continues to be overseen by the Technology Oversight Committee. And you may have noticed on the report that there was a concern expressed that the external quality assurance or QA vendor was not engaged for the R2 stage. And that was because we were in the process of renewing the contract with the consultant for these additional phases and services that were needed. They are now back on. And in fact, this past Monday evening, which was our regularly scheduled monthly TOC meeting, the QA provider was there at the meeting, presented their assessment of the project, which again was still very positive. Excuse me. And I'll turn it over to Diana if you have any comments you would like to make or observations.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mayor Wheeler. Commissioner Rivios, we haven't officially met, but I am your representative on the TOC. It's nice to see you. The integrated tax system, I did want to share, I know again, the concern, we've heard the concern about QA not being in place for R2. I think with this program, one of the things that we have found is actually it's been run very well by the city. The QA representative in partnership with the city resources for R1 really set up a good foundation so that as they rolled into R2, they were really prepared. And now that they're back on for R3, we're seeing that continue. So the continuity is actually there because they set things up so well together to start with. So as the TOC, we are not concerned with this gap in time without QA because they've actually been just continuing the plan they laid out together as they started planning in R1. So hopefully that helps assuage any concerns you might have.
Thank you, Diana.
Yeah. I think that's the only comments I have on ITS since it's the only project we have right now. Do you have any questions for us? I think is
Colleagues, any questions? That was brief, to the point, very helpful. And if no questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report.
I so moved to accept the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Can I get a second?
A second.
Second from Commissioner Ryan. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Keelan, please call the roll on the report.
Ryan.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Jeff, and thank you, the amazing volunteers, Wilfred, Jimmy, hello, Jimmy, Leland, Diana, and Victoria for your report and your work on the integrated tax system. This report helps to bring us along on the work and progress you are doing for our city's systems. Thank you, Director Reinhardt and the OMF staff for your support and collaboration with this important group. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
I want to thank also the Technology Oversight Committee for your continued expertise that you bring to the table to help the city of Portland do technology better. It sounds like we're letting you slack off because apparently you only had one project on your calendar, and it is our hope to fix that. You should be hearing from Portland Police Bureau about their need to have your support as they look at acquiring new technology. And so I just want to continue to thank all of you. I have found you all to be experts in your field. I found you willing to give your expertise time and time again. We would think that a new system to collect taxes from not just the city of Portland, but also Multnomah County and other entities in our region would be something that would make you pull your hair out. And the fact that you have supervised this process so well that it actually even hasn't been a blip on a radar screen says a lot about the quality of your work. So I cannot be grateful enough for the work that you do for the city and how much I am looking forward to you being able to help the police bureau be able to also buy technology that we can support because it works and it actually does what we intended to do. I want to give a personal shout out to Victoria Trapp, who's my representative. And she makes me smile every time I see her because she's always just so full of energy and a commitment to this task. All of you could be doing anything else with your volunteer time. And I just want you to know how grateful I am that you allow us to utilize your expertise. I'm very, very happy to vote aye.
Maps.
I join my colleagues in thanking the members of the Technology Oversight Committee for their important work. I'm glad to vote aye on this report.
Rubio.
I also, can you hear me? I'm sorry, I'm having some computer. Okay. I'm also having, I also want to thank the Technology Oversight Committee for all their work and for the thorough oversight on this project. And it's very dense information. And so I just want to appreciate all the volunteer hours that are put in and all the staff hours. And thanks for helping us understand as people new to this topic. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Well, before I cast my vote, I just want to take this opportunity, since we have him here, to recognize Director Baer for winning Technology Magazine's Top 25 Doers, Dreamers, and Drivers Award. This recognizes the country's highest achieving innovators, collaborators, and transformers who improve government through technology. Director Baer and his team at the Bureau of Technology Services did an incredible job of enabling the City of Portland to work remotely during the pandemic. I want to thank Director Baer. Congratulations. Thank you to your entire team. I also want to thank the Technology Oversight Committee. You're an important part of this mix. Thank you all for your significant efforts on behalf of the City of Portland. I am very happy to vote aye, and the report is accepted. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm super proud of the team and what we were able to do. Thank you.
Well, congratulations to you as well, Director.
Thank you.
Next, folks, we're obviously 20 minutes ahead of the time when we can do the next time certain. We'll move to the regular agenda. Next item, Keelan 285, please.
Accept bid of MJ Hughes Construction, Inc. for the Bulch Creek Trash Rack Retrofit Project for $3,670,321.
Colleagues, after that introduction, I'm sure you are excited about this proposal. This is a procurement report for the Bureau of Environmental Services project to rehabilitate the Bulch Creek Trash Rack. If you don't know what the Bulch Creek Trash Rack is, you're in for a treat. The Bulch Creek Trash Rack captures sediment, logs, and debris that's carried down Bulch Creek from Forest Park, preventing backups at the point where the creek flows into the underground pipe to the Willamette River. Now, when I heard my first presentation on this, I was like, what the heck is a trash rack? And I had a very different image in my mind. And what I learned in the first presentation on a different part of our city's water system was that in the absence of these facilities being maintained, it can cause massive environmental as well as structural damage. So this is truly an important item. We have Chief Procurement Officer Kathleen Brenes-Marua is here to present the report. Good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you all. I am Kathleen Brenes-Marua, Interim Chief Procurement Officer, and I am here to recommend authorization to enter into a contract with MJ Hughes Construction Incorporated for the Bulch Creek Trash Rack Retrofit Project. On September 30, 2020, Council approved Ordinance Number 190155 for procurement services to solicit the project. The engineer's estimate was $3 million, and the confidence level was moderate. Procurement Services issued an invitation to bid on February 16th, and 4 bids were received on March 16th. The bid of MJ Hughes Construction was determined to be the lowest responsive bid in the amount of $3,670,321. The city's aspirational 20% subcontractor and supplier utilization goal applied. MJ Hughes Construction has committed to subcontract 20.01% to firms certified by the state's Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity, as identified in the report before you. They are self-performing 56.05% of the work and subcontracting the remaining 23.94% to non-certified firms. MJ Hughes Construction is in full compliance with all of the city's contracting requirements, and I here recommend that Council accept the report and authorize execution of the contract.
Thank you, Director. Colleagues, any questions? There's no question that is inappropriate for an issue like this. If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Mapps. Any second?
Second.
Commissioner Hardesty seconds it. Thank you. Commissioner, any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ryan,
Yes, the Blatch Creek trash rack. I just want to say that. I vote aye.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Well, I sort of agree with Commissioner Ryan. It's a good warm up for the mouth and the vocal cords to say that. But at any rate, this is a very important project. Kathleen, thank you for bringing it forward. And I appreciate that you're addressing the targets. It looks like appropriately. Thank you. I vote aye. The report's accepted.
Thank you.
Look forward to a successful project. Next up is 286 from the Housing Bureau.
Approve application under the multiple unit limited tax exemption program under the inclusionary housing program for analog PDX located at 1871 North Flint Avenue.
So this is a second reading. We've already had a presentation and heard the opportunity for public testimony on this item. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ryan,
Yes, thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Director Callahan, the developer Paul DiVecchio, and their colleagues Carrie Strickland and Allison Reynolds. I really want to thank you for the dialogue last week. I thought it was really a good example of healthy government. I'd also like to thank those who testified last week and offered their feedback on inclusionary housing policy and program. The analog project complies with applicable multi-codes and rules, and through reconfiguration offers 3-bedroom units. However, they aren't family units. I seriously cannot see a parent living there with 4 kids. This just isn't high quality family, low-income housing. And as someone who's been advocating for affordable housing for families, due to the fact that frequently moving is one of the major factors that affects student success, this project does fall short. I am encouraged that the Portland Housing Bureau has adopted new administrative rules and that under my guidance, we will look to keep improving this code. Going forward, I'm committed to continue working with my colleagues, the Housing Bureau, affordable housing advocates in the development community to improve our policies to ensure we are investing in responsible projects and that we're providing the affordable family units that we desperately need. With all that, I vote aye.
Hardesty,
I want to thank also the developer, their attorney, and all the people who testified last week on behalf of this project. I absolutely agree with Commissioner Ryan that I don't see a path where a single parent would have a good living experience in a building built for seniors. I mean, for singles. And the reality is that unfortunately, this has happened quite a bit with this multi-program. I am very pleased that we have changed the rules so that we are more intentional about creating real family units and apartments. I've challenged this program since the day I showed up. It will get better. I appreciate the leadership of Commissioner Ryan and the Housing Bureau because I know I've pushed them quite a bit in my time here around this particular issue. I am comfortable in voting no on this project, knowing A, that it will pass today, and B, that we will not be put in this position again in the future to be choosing between units that are not appropriate for family living versus losing the opportunity to create more housing that at some point will be affordable for families. So I am happy to vote no, and I look forward to the changes being fully implemented to ensure that we don't continue to make this mistake as we move forward. Thank you.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
want to thank Commissioner Ryan for taking the time to talk with me extensively about this issue, and I also want to just acknowledge and appreciate the dialogue last week as well. And this continues to be a difficult item that we're grappling with and has come up week after week, and is an example of where the guidelines were technically met, but the spirit of the guidelines was not to a level that we would hope, and of which low-income families in need of such units are deserving. And when we look at these developments, especially those that are participating in city incentives for these kinds of affordable developments, we hope that they move forward if they're prepared to embrace and respect the true space, contextual, and atmospheric needs of low-income families with children, and also be actively striving towards the most affordability possible while not stigmatizing families in those contexts. And it doesn't sound easy to do. I know it's very careful work, but it does demonstrate a true commitment to the spirit of this policy. But what the conversations have done for me is to highlight the places where the city must be tighter and clearer on the guidelines. So, and I know that, as we've heard, my colleagues are working on this as we speak. And so I'm heartened that we're getting clear about what we want to see out of projects like this. So for that reason, I'm happy to vote aye with the understanding that these changes will be made.
Wheeler.
I vote aye. The report is accepted. Thank you, everyone. Next item, 287, please.
Assess benefited properties for street, sidewalk, and stormwater improvements in the Northeast 27th Avenue and Holland Street Local Improvement District.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. Please give me just a sec. I appear to be a bit behind.
Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and Councilman.
Good morning, Andrew. Thank you for being here. I was looking for my talking points, but why don't I just turn it over to you and let you get the show started, and I'll come back.
Thank you. Mayor Wheeler, could we have Keelan read agenda item 288 as well? We had planned on reading these together.
Yeah, you bet. Keelan, please read 288.
Vacate portions of Northeast 27th Avenue and Northeast Holland Street south of Northeast Columbia Boulevard, subject to certain conditions and reservations.
Awesome. Thank you. Andrew, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Andrew Abbey, Local Improvement District Administrator.
Andrew, your sound just went away.
Andrew?
Looks like he's frozen a bit. Well, good. Now that he's frozen, I'm happy to read my overview.
Please do, Commissioner.
It's amazing how that works. Are you back, Andrew?
Yeah,
he's moving again.
The only time my computer freezes is when I'm up in front of council. But here's what I'm going to do.
Andrew, can I suggest you turn off your video? That seems to help sometimes.
I will do that. Thank you, Mayor. So I'll just be a black screen testifying today. If something strange happens, I'll jump back in on my phone. Lance, do we have the PowerPoint ready to go?
Yes, it's coming up right now.
Thank you.
Once you're done, I'll come back and give some thank yous. And thank you so much for being here this morning.
All right. Thank you, Lance. You can go ahead to slide number 2, please. This is a map of the LID that we just completed and the street vacation. This is a very geographically constrained location. One of my sayings as a project manager in PBOT is that all the easy stuff got built years ago. So as the region has continued to develop, there's the streets are more and more difficult to build, and we have less and less vacant land, and the vacant land that we do have to develop is increasingly challenging to develop. But we had a very good public-private partnership on this, and we're very pleased to have completed the LID and to bring the street vacation in front of you today to enable the construction of a waste transfer station, which is of key importance to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Next slide, please. Slide number, yeah. So the picture on the left is what Holland Street looked like before we started the LID. You can see we got the paving done there on Holland Street. We did that without removing those large trees that you see there at the northeast corner of the intersection. Next slide, please. This is another example of Northeast 27th Avenue. We got that paved. There were little to no sidewalk facilities, and the sidewalk facilities that did exist were blocked, for example, with the utility pole in the way. So I couldn't imagine being a pedestrian, for example, in a wheelchair trying to get down the sidewalk. Next slide, please. So I'm going to turn it over here to Lance in a moment. He's going to walk you through the street vacation. I just want to highlight for council that we did not receive any objection to final assessment against this LID. I also wanted to just let council know that we are 16.3% below budget for the core LID. And it's not reflected either in the LID ordinance or in the street vacation ordinance, but we will have, PBOT will be issuing an encroachment permit for some fencing around that tree that we're saving. And we will also be issuing a design exception for a new driveway that we will be building on the east side of 27th Avenue, north of Holland Street, to support the future waste transfer station. So those are all my remarks for this morning, and I'll turn it over to Lance unless you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. My name is Lance Lindahl. I'm right-of-way agent with the Portland Bureau of Transportation. And as Andrew mentioned, there's two different parts of this project before you today. The first part was the local improvement district, which actually constructed a variety of street and sidewalk improvements in this area. And in conjunction with that work, PBOT conducted a review of the public right-of-way, and a determination was made that portions of the street area were no longer needed for public use, and a city-initiated street vacation process was begun. The areas proposed for vacation are shown on the map on the current slide. The largest portion of the vacation area is located on Northeast Holland Street on the east side of Northeast 27th Avenue. There's a second area. It's located across 27th Avenue, and it's also just a little stub dead end portion of Holland Street. And then there's also a small third area. It's south of this intersection, and it's located between Northeast Holland and the Union Pacific Railroad right-of-way, which separates this area from North Lombard Street. This neighborhood is currently zoned General Industrial 2. It has a mix of both industrial and commercial uses. And currently the only way to access the streets in question is from Northeast Columbia Boulevard to the north. The Union Pacific tracks, as I mentioned, block access to the south. And currently there's no city access rights or right-of-way between the vacation area and Northeast Lombard Street. Per the city street vacation process, PBOT reached out to other city bureaus, local utility companies, and government agencies. A few of these came back with conditions of approval. The first of these came out of my work group at PBOT. And what we're doing is we're reserving an access easement within the ordinance document for the benefit of the property located at 2946 Northeast Columbia Boulevard. And this property is located immediately to the east of the vacation area. The access easement is shown here in with the hatched lines. And this same area is also going to be an emergency vehicle access easement that has been required by Portland Fire and Rescue. Because of the industrial uses in this area, there were concerns about retaining access for emergency services to the various properties, and this easement will serve that purpose. Other conditions of approval, the Bureau of Development Services has required a lot consolidation replat for any lots or historic lots of record that will be losing street frontage as a result of this vacation. This is a typical condition with larger street vacations. And also, Urban Forestry has required a conservation easement for the protection of 4 large evergreen trees that are located within the vacation area. They're shown here in the picture. There's at least one new development proposed for this area. Andrew mentioned it. It's a Riverview City Environmental is planning a street sweeper waste transfer facility for the area shown here in red. and portions of this vacation area will revert to these properties and allow for them to build their projects. That completes my portion of the presentation. If there's any questions or concerns, we're available to help answer those. And also there are representatives from the adjacent property owners that are online with us today to speak to this issue.
Very good, colleagues. Any questions at this particular point?
So, Mayor,
Commissioner
if I
Arndt?
may,
Yes.
thank you, Mayor. Before we turn it over for additional testimony, if there are no questions, I do have a couple of people I'd like to thank. And I just saw Commissioner Ryan's hand go up, so I will wait if he has questions that he wants answered.
Very good. Commissioner Ryan, we'll come back to you last, Commissioner.
Sure, thank you. This will be really quick, and maybe I'm not the only one that was thinking this. And if I missed it in the report, I apologize. What's with the word vacation? Street? Like, I just want someone to explain that term to me.
It's not as fun as you think.
I'm ready to hear it. I just wanted to educate myself. It'll be like, lifelong learner moment day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an old term that's used in the right-of-way profession, and it's essentially just a fancy term for release of easement rights. Street right-of-way is kind of in this area between fee ownership of property and the release of a simple easement. So that's why we've hung on to the term vacation, because it's unique to this type of land use situation, or property transfer situation, I should say.
Okay, Lance, that was helpful. I just didn't want to make sure. I wanted to make sure I was inspired by such new technical terms. I don't know if I'm going to use it very often, but I do appreciate that you explained it. Thank you so much.
That's right. Thank you, Commissioner.
It's a word we all want to use a lot more, believe me.
I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't say it out loud, but I will affirm the mayor's belief.
In the proper context, right? Yeah.
In the proper context, exactly. I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to really appreciate a couple of key stakeholders in this effort. And I want to start with Steve McGinnis of McGinnis Investments. We're especially pleased with this LID concludes his participation. And by the way, this is the third one that he's participated in. And PBOT really appreciates this partnership because clearly it has helped both McGinnis Investment, their business, be successful, but has also helped PBOT be able to keep its commitment and do the work that it so desperately needs to do. And we appreciate that he has confidence in PBOT, because I hope he still has confidence because he keeps coming back. So I think that says a good thing. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate Chris Hagerman of the Brooking Group, who helps with strategic land use guidance and coordination for the planned waste transfer facilities with the design of this LID. We appreciate his ability to develop solutions that help meet the multiple city bureaus' objectives and interests on this particular LID, including the street vacation. While achieving the city's transportation infrastructure, tree planting, and environmental goals. And just on a personal note, anytime we can save big, beautiful trees, I'm a big fan of that. So I'm grateful for the thoughtfulness that went into that. So I just wanted to add that to the record, and I will turn it back over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Keelan, how many people do we have signed up to testify?
Mayor, we have no one signed up for this item.
Oh, I thought there were some property abutters that had indicated an interest in testifying. Am I wrong about that? Lance had mentioned something.
Mayor, I'm Mayor Wheeler. This is Andrew Abbey. I'm seeing Steve McInnes on the line, and I believe we have Daniel Scarpine, and then
Chris. And Courtney is here today too.
Yeah, and then Chris Hagerman as well.
Okay, why don't we include those as invited testimony, 3 minutes each, please? And if Andrew, can you facilitate, please, by calling the first one and the second and the third?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and start with Steve McInnes? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. I appreciate you guys taking this time to hear from all of us. I'd like to just tell you a few things about myself. I'm Steve McInnes. I have a company, River City Environmental, that's had a great partnership with the city of Portland in the different jobs and things that we help each other out with. I've been in the waste collection business here in the city of Portland for over 40 years. Right now, we presently have a little over 130 employees, and we are looking to add another 20. We have livable wage jobs. We're looking for more minorities. We have probably a third of our staff is minority right now. We're looking to add a additional. So if you know any folks out there that are looking for work, we are hiring in the city of Portland. We'd like to thank you again for this is our third LID that we've done with the city of Portland. And we've really enjoyed working with Andrew Abbey, city of Portland, and all his staff. Andrew's a great leader, and he, even when we have tough times with other neighbors, he's able to get folks on board and keep right on going. This site for us is going to allow us to hire another 5 additional employees to handle the waste stream. When we talk about the waste stream here, we talk about the sweeping waste that we have, catch basin waste, line jetting, so we can actually bring it back to the facility, clean it up to be able to recycle it and take it to the proper either additional recycling or how to process it. River City, we have been doing this since 1995 and growing. Our commitment has always been to keep the rivers, the streams, the creek beds, everything clean from testing right on down the line. We actually do hold over 14 patents to clean up stormwater, and it's in the stormwater industry, from the catch basin filters to the media that we make to pull dissolved metals out. We are really looking forward to the approval and to be able to build a new site on 27th and all. To give you a little more background here on us. These are going to be 2 separate buildings built on the site, and to be able to direct different products to each building. DEQ is on board, backing us up, really wants to see this project as well. And we just ask for your support and your help here. The last thing, I think, Mayor Wheeler, I think it was about a month ago, you said that you were looking to do a deep clean on the city of Portland. And if there's anything we can do to facilitate that or help that out, either have staff get a hold of me or someone at our facility, we'd really like that. The last thing, I'd like to thank everyone here, everyone that's had testimony in that has really helped us get to where we are today. So by that, thank you, and we'll talk to you in the short future.
Thanks, Mr. McGinnis. We appreciate it. Andrew, if you could call the next individual.
Yeah, let's next go with Daniel Scarpine, and then we'll go with Corky Collier.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony. For the record, my name is Daniel Scarpine. I'm the principal engineer of a Portland firm called Aquarius Environmental. We're a small business concern here in Portland, headquartered in Portland. We provide environmental and engineering services to numerous businesses within the Portland area. And a significant focus of our practice is stormwater quality. Our goal is to contribute to sustainable rivers, watersheds, as well as healthy cities and businesses. We've worked for numerous years with River City Environmental. They've helped us on many complex maintenance projects, as well as just routine and regular maintenance, street and pavement sweeping. River City provides these maintenance services direct to us and to our clients for sweeping. The big thing about sweeping is, why do we do it? Frankly, it's critical to preventing pollutants such as dirt, trash, and debris from entering our waterways. Frequent cleaning of the paved surfaces in the urban environment removes these debris and limits potential toxic pollutants such as copper, lead, and zinc from entering our rivers and creeks. Now, a big challenge with modern sweepers is there are these expensive machines that have kind of a limited capacity for how much sweeping they can hold. And so it's very important that the sweepers have a facility within a reasonable distance to manage the material. Ultimately, the primary benefit of sweeping is to capture pollutants that would otherwise end up in the river. And by segregating those as dry materials, as is proposed at this location, we really get a big bang for our buck environmentally because we're removing pollutants, creating a method to recycle and segregate or dispose of those materials. As I mentioned, it's critical that there is a facility close by for the sweeper to transfer this material, and it's equally critical that this is done in an environmentally conscious manner. Portland has a very limited number of these facilities, and having a facility in the vicinity of Northeast 27th and Holland is really a good spot for coverage of a lot of facilities across the Columbia Slough, where we have thousands of facilities that rely on sweeping and cleaning services. I sent in some written testimony to you all with some photographs of what this material looks like, but I just wanted to speak on behalf of the project and all the great work that PBOT has done to support the project, all the great work that River City Environmental has done to focus in on this project, and the partnerships they've taken with the city, with Metro, and Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say I strongly support the LID project, strongly support the street vacation, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. I think we can.
Corky.
Mayor, I think we can go with Corky now.
Yeah, Corky, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corky Collier, Executive Director of the Columbia Corridor Association. For those of you that may not know, Andrew Abbey was one of Nick Fish's favorite employees. The reasons were pretty simple. He finishes his projects on time and on budget. But more importantly, he doesn't start his projects until he really listens to all the property owners affected. And he not only listens, he incorporates what he hears into those projects, and his projects are better for it. This one's a little unusual because it gives up city right away, but it's a short, dead-end segment that only serves 2 properties. Andrew's including a solid easement to ensure the properties will have permanent access. In the end, it'll save the city money, and it'll improve sidewalks in a freight district. I've been in touch with several of the property owners over the years we've worked on this. I think it's a well-conceived request, and I hope you'll approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Corky. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't see anybody else on the line, so I think that concludes the testimony for this morning. I appreciate council's time.
Very good. Colleagues, any further questions before I move these along? I'm not seeing any questions. 287 is a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. 288 is also a non-emergency ordinance. It also moves to second reading. Thank you all who presented and testified today. With that, now we will go back to the time certain agenda, to the second item on time certain, item number 279, please.
Metro regional priorities.
Short and to point. Colleagues, this morning we're joined by Metro Council President Lynn Peterson and Councilors Mary Nolan and Bob Stacey, who have asked for the opportunity to share a presentation on Metro's regional priorities. We are very happy to have you here. Council President and Councilors, welcome. And why don't we start with President Peterson? Good morning, and we'll let you take it from here.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be here today. We just wanted to catch up with you. First, before I kick it over to my colleagues, I just want to say thank you for the partnerships during this pandemic. Your leadership is truly appreciated. Mayor, thank you for being so focused on the homeless and garbage pickup in the region, as well as the economic restart of our region. Commissioner Ryan, thank you so much for all of the work that you're bringing to the homeless and the supportive housing service measure. Commissioner Rubio, I can't wait to start working with you on arts and culture after this pandemic is started to be over and we can see a clear line of path. Commissioner Hardesty, I just can't thank you enough. Using your own word, you are fabulous. I can't, what a great partnership on transportation between Metro and the city. And Commissioner Mapps, we have yet to work together, but I know whatever it is going to be amazing. So looking forward to that. We are nothing but partnerships at Metro because we are your regional government and we just are here to support most of what you all are doing in the cities and counties. And so I'm going to kick it over to Commissioners Nolan and Commissioner Stacy to quickly go through what have we been up to during the pandemic, point out some of the things we've been working on with you, and answer any of your questions on this amazing partnership that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. Your Honor, Commissioners Bob Stacy, Metro Districts, which most southeast.
I think there's am I the only one who's hearing it garbled? No. Okay. Can you turn off your video, Counselor, and see if it improves the sound quality?
Absolutely. Yes. You don't want to see that anyway.
Yeah, you're a good looking guy.
Okay. I appreciate that.
That sounds better.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's just start with a reminder, and my notes say, especially for folks watching at home, of what Metro does. And I hope your Nielsen ratings are higher than ours because there's not that many people who watch from home when Metro's on. The Metro region extends from Forest Grove in the west to Troutdale in the east, and from the Columbia River down to Wilsonville. We have 5 key areas that we work on. Long-term growth, meaning the urban growth boundary and other plans for the future. We protect 17,000 acres of parks and nature, purchased with voter support from around the region. We manage the region's garbage and recycling system, and we run regional key visitor venues, including the ones owned by the City of Portland under our operating agreement. The Oregon Convention Center, the Expo Center, Portland 5 Centers for the Performing Arts, and the Oregon Zoo. And we manage a regional housing, affordable housing construction program, and the regional supportive housing program. And of course, the Oregon Zoo. It's one of the state's top tourist attractions. It's a national leader in wildlife conservation. Most of us know about our elephant program, which is helping to conserve the endangered Asian elephant on our 6-acre Elephant Lands exhibit. We're also very proud of our condor conservation program. The condor was once native to Oregon. Lewis and Clark reported seeing them and working hard to expand the condor's native range and get it back to Oregon. And of course, as the photo shows, we have welcomed Nora to the new Polar Passage exhibit. We're happy to have Nora back again. I think she was in Cincinnati, and this is a better place than Cincinnati. At least I think so. Metro manages the main theaters owned by the City of Portland and downtown. It's another partnership with the City of Portland. The Schnitz, Keller Auditorium, Newmark Theater, Brunish, and Winningstad Theaters. We lost 750 employees when we had to close those venues last March, and we're eager to welcome guests back again soon. Madam President, it's you now.
Oh, good. All right. Well, next slide, please. The Expo and Convention Center are part of our venues, forums, and they were not exactly designed to deal with the type of emergencies that we have been facing, but they have stood the test of time as assets for our region, so much appreciated. Just a reminder of the heavy lifting that they have done during the pandemic and the smoke and wildfires and severe weather, as well as a whole host of other things. The Expo Center hosted the Red Cross staging during the wildfires for many of the Clackamas County evacuees with big rigs or trailers. The Oregon Convention Center was an emergency shelter for Clackamas County, most of the Clackamas County fire evacuees, as well as a homeless shelter expansion area so we could get the social spacing in Multnomah County for the shelters, as well as, Metro Council, the Metro headquarters parking lot, the 3-story parking lot was actually used as a severe weather warming shelter, as well as the Oregon Convention Center. So thank you for that. We are trying to put all our assets on the table, as you will see as we go through this, to make sure, and I'm encouraging every other city and county to put all their assets on the table to deal with the issues that we're facing in this region. Both the Expo and Oregon Convention Center hosted COVID-19 testing early on and through the pandemic. And now, as you know, in the Willamette Week has a great article out today highlighting that the mass vaccination site at the Oregon Convention Center with the 4 hospital systems is it has been recognized as the most efficient and well done mass vaccination site in the country. Who knew? It's a great thing, but we are very pleased with how our assets have been able to be used by the region during this pandemic. Next slide. Are we on to you, Councillor Nolan? I'll do it.
I think this one is still yours.
Okay. So the Parks and Nature is another one of our lines of business. And as you know, the voters, and we thank the voters very much, passed a $475 million bond measure that is property tax based. It's our 3rd bond measure. The first 2 protected more than 17,000 acres of open space. And the bond measure has money in it, as it has since the beginning, that goes to a local share. So your portion of this local share shall be coming to your budget in this next fiscal year. And we look forward to working with you and having those ribbon cutting ceremonies when we can actually do that on new parks and new equipment and new educational opportunities for folks in the region. Of course, the Regional Parks Program was created to mainly protect habitat and open space for the future, large tracts of open space. Our new bond measure actually drills down even further and has the ability to partner, like we are with Willamette Falls or with Albina Vision, to be able to take parks money and combine it with complex urban development so that we make sure that this region has the parks that we need as we densify and grow population. And then we're obviously working hard with you with projects such as Block 14 at Lone Fir and Willamette Cove. Next slide. All right, so long-range planning. We are the keeper of the 50-year land use transportation planning, the Metro 24th growth concept, one of the big pushes on urbanization and discussion around how to do it better, have a 15-minute neighborhood, all these amazing things that we talked about back when in the 90s. But there was so much that was left off the table between GHG emissions and racial equity that weren't even part of that conversation. AI, right? Artificial intelligence wasn't part of that. We were all set to do a reset, a new visioning for 2070, folks, 2070. And then the pandemic hit and we said, nobody wants to talk about a 50-year plan. We are more focused right now on a very narrow set of things, including with you at GPI, Greater Portland Inc., the 5-year the 5-year economic recovery plan. That's where we're focusing our energy instead of a 50-year plan. We think that that's much more appropriate for right now. And we are also the keepers of the urban growth boundary discussion. There are 2 cities in Washington County that are interested in an urban growth boundary expansion mid-cycle. That would be the first time. It's a very narrow reason that they have to justify a need for expansion, but we are in conversations with them. Obviously, transportation planning and funding through the feds. And we really work on making sure that we have both a racial equity lens and a climate change lens when we work on any of our long-range planning, as well as our implementation. One of the things that did not pass was the transportation measure. That was disappointing because transportation needs are not going away. However, what we did hear is that the contents of the package are good. People just want to have a conversation, especially businesses, about the opportunity for looking at other financing mechanisms, and we'll be starting up conversations sometime this year on that. Next slide. All right. Go ahead, Councilor Nolan.
I'm happy to take this on, Madam President. Garbage and recycling is one of the stealth operations that Metro provides, and it is one of the largest operations if you measure it in terms of dollars through our budget. As you all know, Metro has responsibility for regional transfer of waste and management of the contract for long-term disposal of waste at the landfill in Eastern Oregon. But well beyond that, Metro also cooperates with Portland and the other cities in the region and the 3 counties around pushing for ways to make the system more efficient, manage costs, improve recycling, and make sure that equity of service is achieved throughout the entire region. We are in the process now of evaluating our entire system and the facilities needed to meet the growing demands of a growing population in this region, looking at possibilities of expansion of transfer station services. We are funding investment and innovation grants for local nonprofits as well as local businesses to incentivize and support their discovery of innovative ways of reducing waste, treating it more efficiently, reducing the greenhouse gas emissions of the transport of waste around the region and outside the region. We have achieved great success in removing food waste, particularly commercial food waste, from the waste stream, and we're continuing to look at further opportunities that we can invest. This is clearly a partnership we have with cities and local governments because you manage the franchises of collection of waste within Portland, and we are more the wholesale part of the system, making sure that it is managed responsibly and safely and environmentally appropriately. Next. And they gave the new kid on the block the newest services that Metro provides for the region. In 2018, voters approved a regional affordable housing bond measure that supplements Portland's own affordable housing bond measure. The Metro measure was designed to build housing, 3,900 units of housing for more than 12,000 people within a decade. Today, I'm here to share really good news about our progress on this measure. So far, while committing just 34%, roughly a third of the money approved by voters, we have got commitments to build over half the housing units that we promised. And within that half, nearly 700 of those units are for families who earn annually less than $26,000. And I listened to some of your earlier discussion today. These truly are units designed for housing families, in contrast to the ones you talked about earlier that were conversions. We are very proud of being able to provide family appropriate housing. It is actually fabulous, and I had that in my notes before. You mentioned Commissioner Hardesty's preference for that, but it is fabulous that we will welcome the first families to move into a Metro Housing Bond Measure community this summer. Regional housing authorities, certainly including Home Forward, have been instrumental in this success. We are grateful to them for their efforts, and we are eager to work with them and with you to ratchet the results up even further going forward. If we've committed only a third of our money so far, but have got commitments to build half our housing, we're convinced, and we are looking forward to working with you to deliver more housing units than the original bond measure estimate. And let's think about that in human terms. Together, every 10% we can lower the cost of building this housing means 10% more families who can move into housing. So as part of our partnership with the Portland Housing Bureau, we've partnered to modernize and expand the Deacon Court apartments, which many of you know about. And we are working with some of you, notably Commissioner Ryan, on removing barriers and proceeding with other renovations that will save naturally occurring affordable housing for low-income families for decades to come. The compassion and generosity of voters is certainly key to this success. But it's not just about the bond money. Portland and other cities can and are removing barriers, reducing the impact on the cost of housing by changing up your codes, by streamlining your processes and expediting to the point of issuing permits. And as I said earlier, every $10,000 or 10% that we can knock off the cost of building this housing by making it more straightforward means we can serve more families. And we are interested in getting to that point collectively with you. Next slide, please. Our very brand new service in Metro that we are still adjusting to how we will cooperate with the counties on is the result of the work that people did to pass the supportive housing measure last May. We all know that some of our neighbors need more than just a roof over their head in order to be safe and successful in their lives and to have stability and dignity and peace. We see the homeless crisis on our streets every day, whether it's downtown Portland, along the 205, Powell Boulevard, Cornelius, Beaverton, Troutdale, Gresham, Oregon City. We know people are living outside because they don't have the support they need to safely live inside. It's important to me in this work to remember that these are human beings. These are someone's son or daughter, someone's brother, sister, or friend. A year ago, groups and individuals working for and with homeless people designed, imagined, worked successfully to pass a groundbreaking, truly groundbreaking supportive housing program with an audacious goal to functionally end chronic homelessness in Greater Portland within a decade. This effort was and will be a partnership among people on the street and their advocates, providers of services, leaders from Portland and 23 other cities, and the 3 counties, along with business owners and business managers. Good work and community input has resulted in proposed local improvement plans from the counties They are under review with Metro. Indeed, Multnomah County's local improvement plan is on our council agenda tomorrow. These local improvement plans offer varying combinations of rent assistance, addiction treatment, mental and physical health care, workforce training, and transitional shelter in anticipation of permanent housing. We face a profound crisis, and I don't need to tell you that. It is borne disproportionately by people of color, people living with disabilities, people who have been shunned or ignored by people who look like me. This crisis calls on all of us to make a rapid and sustained response on a par with floods and wildfires and the pandemic. Collectively, we haven't yet met the crisis with the urgency it demands. This specific measure is a partnership between Metro and the counties, but it touches directly on and depends on the initiatives that you at the City of Portland have launched. Mr. Mayor and commissioners, your action tables promise quick, broad-based results. We hope that they will inspire a focus on action, immediate results, as well as sustained change in all this work. We will stand and act with you. Next slide.
Excuse me, Mayor, if I may.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. Could we go back to the last slide, please? I didn't want to interrupt Councilor Nolan, but this struck me. We're going to functionally end chronic homelessness in Greater Portland by 2030. That is a bold statement, and as you know, we have made bold statements in the past around houselessness that have not come to pass. And so what I know is that the public will hold us accountable to this goal. Why do you believe this goal is achievable in the short time period that we have to make it happen? That's like 8 years is what you're saying. We're going to fix this problem in 8 years.
The expectation is that since the measure was for 10 years, that we would use those funds that the public entrusted to us, Commissioner Hardesty and Mayor and the rest of the council. And I share both your skepticism, which I think is an honorable place to be. I also share some optimism because the people who are working this are committed to a region-wide approach that learns lessons across the counties that is new from the way we have approached this crisis in the past. I'm mindful, Commissioner Hardesty, that we are sitting here in 2021 with the city's 2005 10-year plan to end homelessness gathering dust somewhere. But I commit to you personally, and the Metro Council commits, that we really do see this as a crisis that requires urgency. Some of our counties are still getting up to speed on this work because it is newer to them. Right. Multnomah County is not one of those. Multnomah County is providing leadership on this. But it is because of the commitment, because of the coordination, and because of the openness to trying things, testing them against measurable outcomes, and if they don't work, changing them and taking a course that is more productive.
Thank you. I just did not want to let that slide go by without acknowledging that we've had this conversation many times over the years. And though I am cautiously optimistic, I personally would not make a commitment that this would be the reality in 2030, just because I understand that without relief from the eviction moratorium, our houseless problem is going to get a whole lot worse before we will see any improvement. So thank you for that.
And if I could just add on quick, Commissioner Hardesty, the Here Together coalition that came together, as Councillor Nolan pointed out, has really made this commitment. And I think it's important to note that it is regional. And they are basing it on the fact that we actually did functionally end veterans' homelessness in this country with a plan, right? And so it's important
for
to
a
note
minute. I don't think we could say that today, but we did for a minute.
Yeah, for a minute. That's right. So I do know that what we need to be aware of as a region is that we are in a deep hole on affordability in this region. It's going to take some time to dig out of that. And if there is anything that's more needed is living wage jobs and growth of living wage jobs in this region in order so that problem does not grow any larger than it is today. And so what we're trying to do in Metro is make sure that we are pushing both on the economics as well as the attempt to deal with a global economic situation combined with a pandemic, right? So I think as long as we're pushing at both ends to make sure that we're not allowing anybody else to fall into homelessness, then this is optimistically achievable. I think we will fall short if we don't pay attention to both.
And this success needs all of us to keep it as a top priority, as urgent as if it is our son or daughter sleeping on the street. All of us. And let's move on to economic development, because Council President Peterson referred to addressing houselessness and economic development are woven together. None of our affordable housing efforts or our homeless services work will be successful until we get our economy back humming in an equitable way. We need to actually go back. I'm going off script here, so I might get yanked aside. But during the pandemic, the wealthiest of the wealthiest thrived. They didn't just survive, but they thrived. In Portland, in Oregon, we have an opportunity to change that so that the economic recovery is broadly shared, equitably shared across all the people who call this place home. Metro is doing its part by working to invest in working families. In particular, I'll highlight our venues, which Council President Peterson had talked about earlier. But we have a training program for construction jobs that we utilize in our venues in order to make access to family wage jobs that are sustainable for a career available to a broad base of people who have been excluded and, in fact, in some corners are still being excluded today. We're working to support businesses as they recover, local businesses. We do that in cooperation with cities and counties around the region. We contribute as well by our efforts to plan for and invest in a region-wide transportation system that is 21st century smart, climate sensitive, efficient, and responsive to emerging technologies like electrification of vehicles and autonomous vehicles as they will be coming into line, if not within the next decade, certainly soon after that. And smart planning and coordinated planning around the region to make sure that our land use designations have room for housing, have room for recreation and habitat preservation, and also have adequate room that is well served by the transportation system for economic activities, jobs that people can do. And I'll close by just saying that our economic development approach and plan and activities is structured around the notion of thinking regionally and acting locally. We depend on cities in the 3 counties to make that work succeed. And we look forward to continuing the partnership and holding each other accountable. Push back on us, and we will be the loyal opposition when it's needed on the work you're doing. It's a great partnership. We honor it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. President Peterson, does that complete your presentation?
Yes, sir, it does.
Very good. Colleagues, any questions? I just want to start off by saying how much I appreciate the tremendous collaborations. Obviously, we are deeply entrenched both on the transportation front, land use issues, and the homeless issue is one that no government can solve alone. This is going to take a lot of collaboration, and we're grateful for your leadership on that front. I see Commissioner Mapps, then Ryan, then Rubio, then Hardesty. We'll start with Commissioner Mapps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to thank my colleagues for that really fascinating presentation. There were so many things there that I'd like to dig in on, but I know we're short on time. One thing which I'd like to hear more about is the affordable housing that you're building. Number one, how much affordable housing have you built in Portland? And number two, what's your secret sauce for bringing this affordable housing in at such a low price?
So if I can just make sure that we understand, Metro owns no assets or builds no assets, operates no assets. We are simply your humble servants in making sure we provide oversight to make sure that the voters, what they passed is what the 7 housing authorities are building. And we can certainly, or Commissioner Ryan probably knows off the top of his head, the number of units that have been committed to by the city and Home Forward, but I don't have that at my fingertips, and we can get those numbers to you as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
But the money raised in each jurisdiction does go back to each county, so it is dispersed that way. Yes, Councilor Nolan.
Commissioner Mapps, I will take you up offline on your invitation for a conversation about our secret sauce.
Okay.
Together we need a recipe, don't we?
We sure do. Well, I look forward to cooking with you. Thank you.
Well, hey, first of all, thank you, President Peterson and Councilors Nolan and Stacy. That was such a open partnership presentation. And I know you just mentioned the word assets, Madam President, and your quote was, I just want to thank you for placing your assets on the table. I found in my short time in this role, my interactions with you and your colleagues to be, I have this saying right now, we're in a crisis. We don't have time to look good. We just have to be good. And that's what I experienced when I work with my colleagues at Metro. And I want to really thank you for that. A few things that I just want to call out. Wasn't just the work at Convention Center for COVID, but I know you mentioned it briefly, but truly the warming stations that you set up during the recent winter storm were they saved lives, period. And I experienced that firsthand. So thank you for that. I know that the Willamette Cove is personal for me since I grew up in those parts, and I look so forward to being a partner with all of you in making that a reality. I also want to mention just how creative we've been in our discussions about where we can site property and where we can really treat this, as Councilor Nolan said, an emergency. And I know we'll have more news on that as it evolves. I wrote down a few notes. I have prepared remarks, but I got off script because I was so taken with what you were all saying. I also want to mention the upstream work on trades. I found working in that space for a decade that it really was the mental models that had to change in the K-12 system, because our educators don't intuitively guide our students towards work in the trades. And it's a big obstacle. And so when we're in sessions and we are frustrated with the lack of minority contractors, I realized that it's never going to go as fast as it should. But boy, if we don't keep focusing on those relationships with our students that we've ignored historically, to get them into those careers right out of high school so that they can have family wage earning jobs in the short term. It's a work collectively that we all must stay focused on. So we can really see those percentages in not just apprenticeships, but eventually, of course, contractors go up in our region. So it was just fascinating to just hit a few of those highlights. And of course, I'll just end with how excited I am to work with Councillor Nolan on affordable housing. And I know we have a targeted meeting coming up soon on that, and we'll hopefully be able to keep delivering more good news. And thank you for hearing the earlier presentation, because you heard what we were talking about. And we really do need family affordable housing so our students can stay place bound throughout their K-12 experience, because really it's that mobility issue is one of the biggest factors in why our students don't succeed. Anyway, you're a great partner. It was wonderful to have this dialogue today. Please come back and we'll do the same.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to President Peterson and Councilors Nolan and Stacy for providing these updates to all of us about all the priorities and the work that's happening at Metro. I want to thank you for your leadership in the region, and particularly because we're in really challenging times and we are very intertwined partners. My question for you is both as a new commissioner and also in the context of COVID economic stabilization and recovery, which is on top of mind for all of us. What priorities have you had to shift significantly in this time? And of all that you've presented, because I know all of them are the priorities, but what are your most focused areas that are on deck first and that are the most pressing things? It's just helpful for me to know what those things are for you. And then also, just as a follow-up, as we are jurisdictional partners, where and how can we continue to be good partners, or where can we be better partners as a city? Thanks.
Thanks. I'll let my colleagues take the second one. I'll take the first and see if I can get through the list. But I think obviously we are part and parcel of the recovery of this region with our venues and the visitors, travel. And as that comes back, we're going to want to be able to hire back the 750 people that we had to lay off. And we are looking at coming back better than we were last time. I will just repeat what I said at council. I am not willing to bring employees back under a model where other people get to make a profit on the backs of Metro employees. We had a model that was much more private oriented in the past, and we're moving to a much more public employee model, and very happy to see that change. So I'd say that as part of Metro's biggest responsibility is in that space coming back out of the pandemic. Obviously in the immediate, the homelessness, working with you in partnership on that, and the supportive housing measure, getting that up and going so that when the money starts flowing in July of this year, right, that everybody's up and running and that there were no barriers to getting that done by July 1st. The third is really, we've been working at the state level to get the funding and the federal level to get the funding for the 5-year economic recovery plan through Greater Portland Inc. and GPED. And I'm going to miss, oh, yes. One of the things that we were not able to do during the pandemic that we are coming out of this pandemic with a high priority on, and again, in partnership with you, is our regional illegal dumping program. We had to put it on hold because we were using incarcerated labor. And obviously no one was allowed out of the jail during COVID. But we also had the conversations with Reimagine Oregon starting up soon afterwards with the Black Lives Matter protest. And that leveraged a conversation to move away from incarcerated labor to a workforce development program. And we're going to go from 2 teams, as we had in the past, to 6 once the budget is adopted. And we are looking to partner with you to see if we can get even more teams on the ground, as well as any private money that wants to come forward and work with us to get even more. So we're very interested in the long-term cleanups in the region, because there's a lot of illegal dumping, whether or not the city of Portland was seeing in the past. this entirety of this region sees a lot of illegal dumping. But there's going to need to be a thrust forward to get out of the hole. And so whatever we can do over the next year to find, at least even if it's one-time money, to put some extra teams together and get that done. But these are the types of sites that you don't send solve volunteers out to, right? They're very steep slopes, and they contain items that are too dangerous for a volunteer to pick up. And just while I think the most important thing on that topic is just to remind people that the trash that they see out there, the vast majority of it has nothing to do with the homeless themselves. The homeless don't want to live in trash any more than anybody else does. They were very good prior to the pandemic we gave them garbage bags. They put it out at the curb. We picked it up. We had a great relationship, and we know where the camps are. What's going on right now is people are taking advantage of the camps and starting, one person illegally dumps and then others come back on top of it. And I've seen this happen in Clackamas County over the years that when I was chair of Clackamas County. And once it starts, it's very hard to stop.
Commissioner Hurst.
Thank you all. I really appreciate you, President Peterson. You have been a strong partner for decades, and I am very grateful for your leadership, especially in the places where you and I overlap. You've been just so helpful in helping me understand both the I-5 freeway replacement project as well as the Rose Quarter project. And I am so grateful that I have your expertise to engage with. I think somewhere I heard, how could Metro be helpful to the city of Portland? I know I heard that question. And so my answer to that question is Metro owns land that could be utilized for us to put managed camps on. As you know, this afternoon, we will finalize a land use change that will allow us to assist houseless people in the transition from being totally out on the street with no supports at all to having the opportunity for a whole host of different camping opportunities. And I will repeat that this will be managed camps that will have garbage pickup and supports for the community members who live there. We have directed city bureaus to start identifying those lands. And Metro, I want you to be our partner. And please, if you could come back in 30 days and tell us what lands you've been able to identify so that we can actually start helping our community transition through both the COVID crisis and, quite frankly, my fear is what happens after July when a moratorium on eviction expires. If we don't act fast and with intention, as Councilor Nolan said, we have to act like these are our children that will be put on the street and without resources rather than them being others. So I would appreciate any help that Metro can give. And honestly, you can help be the regional leader that you are, because there are many governments who don't return my phone calls when I ask this question, right? And I just want to take a moment to say, Councilor Stacy, the years of counsel that you have given me from my early legislative days when I was a young pup who thought I could do everything in one legislative session to my time now here on the city council, you are so genuine in your ability to listen deeply and figure out where the connections are. If you want to talk about what's the secret sauce, I know that Councilor Stacy, that's your secret sauce. You can listen to anybody and you can find common ground. And that is a unique skill that is rare in elected leaders and certainly rare in a leader with your long history. So I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge how much you've helped me not put my foot in my mouth over the years. So I thank you. And last but not least, Councilor Nolan, you and I also go back a bazillion years, our very first days in the legislative body. And I almost chuckled when you were responding to questions when you said, well, yes, Commissioner and Mayor and the rest of the councilor, because we were taught early that you always address the chair. and not the person who asked the question. So I chuckle because I find myself doing that sometimes. Let me just say that throughout this pandemic, it is my belief that Metro has been the most solid partner that we have had. There's never been a time that we've reached out to Metro and say, what can you do, that you weren't just 110% on board. I appreciate you personally, and I know the entire council appreciates your willingness to be creative, think outside the box, and not be tied to the way we've always done things. We, coming out of this pandemic, have to build better and more equitable and be more transparent about who benefits and who does not benefit from the region's resources. And if this pandemic has taught us anything, is that community members don't know what's Metro's jurisdiction, what's the city of Portland, what's the county's jurisdiction, and quite frankly, they could care less. What they do care is that they have elected leaders who are working collectively on these huge issues that we have. I tell the public regularly, the city won't solve our houseless problem by itself, right? It cannot by itself. I hope that you will continue to be strong champions with Home Forward, Home Together, and all the groups who say that, you know, they're working to help us find housing, because we must do both. We must address people living on our street today, and we must build housing that people can afford to live in. It is not an either or proposition, and it's very frustrating to me when people are so focused on the building of buildings that they forget the humanity of what's happening on our street every day. Your help in those coalitions would be greatly appreciated, because I know Commissioner Ryan can't carry it all on his own, and he's done an incredible job of reminding people of our obligation, but he needs you as partners advocating for that as well. So greatly appreciate your presentation today, greatly appreciate your partnership, and greatly appreciate us traveling this journey together. Our economic recovery is interdependent on us all, and we will not get to a good place unless all of us are using our values to actually put the pieces in place to build a more equitable, safe, and just city. So thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. I just want to say we've taken a yes and approach to everything at Metro, and we are already yes and your first request. And we're doing that in conjunction with Commissioner Ryan.
Excellent, right? You know, I love putting things on the public record because I can always come back and say, well, remember that day when we talked about this? But I love and trust you all, and I know that you are good partners, and thank you. We will definitely stay connected around both identifying land and how we can be most supportive of taking care of our most vulnerable people. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. And I'll just wrap up my feelings quickly with the following summation, since I think all of you have heard the details behind it. We are in a crisis mode. We are not in a business as usual mode. We have joint responsibility for an expanding homelessness catastrophe that will require significant changes to the way we currently do business. It will require more resources, more collaboration, and significantly more urgency. And dare I say it, it will require more difficult political leadership from all of us, because we will have to draw some lines. Number two, our city is being buried in litter and overcome with graffiti. There is no one jurisdiction that has responsibility for that. It's everybody from ODOT to TriMet to our landowners here at the city, PBOT, Parks, to the work that we do through our Office of Management and Finance, to the work that we do with private partners, whether it's the railroads or the Portland Business Alliance or the service districts. But you can ask anybody anywhere in this city whether they think we are doing a good job on addressing either the homeless crisis or the livability crisis. And I predict they will tell you to a person that we are not at the scale that we need to be at, that we are not creating the kinds of partnerships and collaborations with the sense of urgency that need to be created. And we're not getting the results that people expect to see. And I believe that is what is driving a great deal of cynicism towards local government in particular, but government generally. And I don't think any of us are daunted by this challenge, but this is not a time for conflict avoidant leadership. There's no way to avoid conflict in order to address these crises that are in front of us today. So it's going to be a tough road ahead. I have 100% confidence in our partners at Metro, and that confidence is only underscored by the presentation today. I have confidence, councilors, in my own city commissioners and their willingness to take on these challenges and make good progress. But we're going to have to stick together, and we're going to have to do it together. And we're also going to have to continue to work with our county and our state partners and others who are going to be critical in helping us make true progress that the public can see and appreciate. Because ultimately, while we can say we're going to hold each other accountable, at the end of the day, that's a bit of a understatement, because ultimately we're both going to be held accountable by the public we serve. And they're setting a reasonable bar and a reasonable expectation in terms of the results they want us collectively to deliver. And so I really appreciate your willingness, President Peterson, and the members of your Metro Council wanting overtly to come here and be here today and share and offer opportunities for us to better partner and collaborate. I think it's essential, and I really appreciate the spirit in which you came forth today. Thank you. This was a great presentation. We don't vote on this. This is a take it or leave it presentation, and we're grateful for it. So thank you for spending time. I know you're all busy coming here and helping to better inform us and help build on that relationship that's so important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will go to the last item on the regular agenda, and that is Parks and Recreation 289.
Declare the Gateway Green Park sliver parcel property surplus real property and authorize the Bureau of Parks and Recreation to dispose of the property by transferring it to TriMet for its Red Line Max Line project.
Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. This specific sliver of property has little value to Parks and Recreation, but it's essential for TriMet's completion of their Red Line Max Line capital improvement project. And consistent with an agreement between both parties, TriMet in exchange will help construct a new emergency access and maintenance road, as well as provide a new multi-use path access point that will connect the park with public transportation. So I will turn it over to Dennis James from Parks, who will share more about this ordinance, and also Dave Unsworth from TriMet, who is also here and available to answer some questions. So Dennis.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to emphasize a couple of issues or matters regarding this ordinance that I think are pertinent. First, essentially, this transfer had been addressed and, at least dealt with in sort of, a certain way in a previous ordinance before council that authorized an intergovernmental agreement between TriMet and the city. That was 190052. And the IGA anticipated that this transfer would take place. And essentially, it, blessed the deal that essentially was was done between TriMet and Parks. As the commissioner indicated, we'll transfer this very small sliver of property that's contained within Gateway Green Park to TriMet. TriMet will use it to finish their Red Line Max Line project, and in return, TriMet's going to construct a multi-use path that will provide really the only access into the park for emergency vehicles, for any other vehicle that might want to get into the park or might need to get into the park, including our maintenance vehicles. We have only two means of access to the park as of this point. One is a small bridge that really doesn't allow for the movement of heavier vehicles. And the other means of access is a railway bridge that is owned by UPRR. We have a license for access via that bridge, but our access is very limited. And it's a very expensive license also because of the fee that we're charged and the insurance that's associated with it. So this multi-use path will, provide really crucial access for parks. And if we did not, have the benefit of having TriMet construct this path for us, Parks would have had to have done it on its own. And in fact, we had anticipated various options in this regard, and it was a very, very expensive proposition. And we really didn't have, by any means, any better options or alternatives to the path that TriMet will be constructing for us. So in all, it's a win-win. And I think Parks and the city will benefit greatly by virtue of going ahead, transferring the small sliver of property to TriMet, and TriMet will certainly be able to put it to good use. And I'll go ahead and allow Dave Unsworth, who's been working with us on this project, to go ahead and add whatever information he'd like to at this point.
Dennis, I think you did a great job in highlighting the true benefits with this. We've done a lot of projects with the city of Portland where we help each other. I think this is a clear indication. We were wanting to extend a new line through here. It's just an extension across I-84. And the purpose for doing that is when we built the Red Line, there are single track pieces which really restrict and give us the inability to extend more service to people throughout the system. It affects everything. And so we've identified some federal funds that can be used to fix this, to extend the light rail out to from Beaverton out to Hillsborough, provide access to the jobs in the Columbia corridor. And because we're building this bridge, Parks asked us to expand it, make it larger, to put a multiple use purpose on it for emergency vehicles. And we agreed to that. So this trade of property helps to pay for a small portion of the cost of the MUP, which we're not charging the city for. So I think it's a great win-win. It's something that we do often with the city and Parks in particular. So I'll stop and see if there are any questions.
Colleagues, any questions at this point? Very good. And does that conclude your presentation? Keelan, how many people do you have signed up for public testimony on this item?
No one is signed up for this item.
All right, good. Well, then if there's no further business, this is an emergency ordinance and you can call the roll, please.
Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. James. Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. I'm all in for this sliver parcel. I vote aye.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Capps?
Aye.
Rubio?
Thank you, Dennis, for your presentation, and thanks to David for also joining us today. We appreciate the partnership with TriMet and are happy to support the Red Line Max capital improvement project. I vote aye.
Wheeler?
Good job, Commissioner Rubio. Thank you, and to your team, and to the folks who presented today. Thank you both for that. Good presentation. I vote aye. The ordinance is approved. Colleagues, will go back to the item that was pulled off the consent agenda, item 284, please.
Authorize grant agreements with 5 organizations for the Constructing Civic Dialogues grant program at the Office of Community and Civic Life, not to exceed $248,319.
Very good. And who pulled this?
Commissioner Ryan's office.
Commissioner Ryan, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I wanted this pulled because I was just so curious about these investments. And I thought it would be good for the public record to take a breath together to acknowledge what this process is like and the value added it brings to our neighborhoods and our communities. So I just wanted to get it off the consent agenda to ensure that happened.
And so, Mayor, we do have staff from Civic Life here, happy to present or answer any questions that Commissioner Ryan may have.
Commissioner Ryan, what's your preference?
I think it'd be, I would love to hear a presentation before I ask questions.
Very good.
Sure.
Thank you. So I am happy to turn it over to Director Sukri to lead the conversation, but I will say that it will be a brief presentation because, of course, we prepared it to be on the consent agenda, but are open to any questions you may have. Sukri, would you like to? Who's going to present?
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you, Commissioner Ryan, for the opportunity to share more about constructing civic dialogues. Curly Smith from Civic Life will be making a brief presentation for you.
Hello, I'm Carly Smith. I'm the grant coordinator at the East Portland Community Office and the Office of Community and Civic Life. I support the Constructing Civic Dialogues grant program, and I want to thank Commissioners Hardesty, Ryan, Commissioner Rubio, Commissioner Mapps, and Mayor Wheeler for allowing me to share about this program today. I did have a slide presentation. I don't know if that is something that we can cue, but I sent it to the clerk to, there we go.
Keelan's on it.
Wonderful. Thank you. So Keelan, please advance to the next slide and we can begin. Okay, as we reimagine new strategies to address conflict resolution that move beyond community policing, we recognize the need for people to access opportunities that help them develop foundational skills of their own around community conflict resolution and communication. The Constructing Civic Dialogues grant program is a concrete way that the City of Portland can channel multi-year financial resources to groups doing this community-based work, as well as support ongoing community mediation services. Living under COVID-19 pandemic, a volatile and uncertain political climate, as well as uprising in response to ongoing police violence and institutional racism, the need for skills around conflict mediation, communication, and community mutual support is central to our health and safety. The aim of this grant program is to support these ongoing community-led efforts in our city. We have focused on programming that is led by the communities that it serves and that works to be accessible to elders and people with disabilities, Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color, people experiencing houselessness, immigrants and refugees, LGBTQIA+ and Two-Spirit people, people with intersecting identities, and others who experience barriers to participation. Next slide, please. For decades, the City of Portland has sponsored community mediation and facilitation services at no cost to community members. These services have enabled individuals to obtain third-party support in discussing challenging topics and have played a role in diverting matters that might needlessly involve police intervention. Civic Life allocated over $4 million for mediation and facilitation services from 2002 to 2019 to Resolutions Northwest for the Neighborhood Mediation Program. Constructing Civic Dialogues has evolved from that program as an upstream approach to addressing conflict in our community and responded to input from underrepresented communities that indicated that they were not proportionally accessing or benefiting from neighborhood mediation funding and have a need for similar services. Next slide. The goals of this program are to provide tools to the public to address conflict by providing no-cost training and skill building around conflict resolution and other communication skills, as well as supporting no-cost conflict mediation. Also, to increase access for participation by supporting multicultural, multilingual, community-specific engagement that also addresses access for people with disabilities and other intersecting identities. Also, develop a coalition among grant partners as a cohort that comes together to collaborate, works in solidarity with one another, and shares resources and goals. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, there we go. In fiscal year 1920, our 7 grant partners in the cohort provided training for 1,536 people through 40 virtual and in-person workshops and courses. The 7 cohort members were AOTA Collective, Disability Art and Culture Project, Oregon Humanities, Training for Transformation, Vanport Mosaic, Portland United Against Hate, and Resolutions Northwest. Some of the trainings include the following offerings: racial trauma and healing, leading reflective conversations, stories and movement, interrupting hate in public spaces, understanding and addressing Islamophobia, Trans-America, trauma-informed care, and facilitation for liberation, facilitating with an anti-oppression framework. These are just a few of the classes that were offered. There were many more. I didn't have enough space to name them all. Next slide, please. So the new grant partners were selected in March of 2021. A diverse grant selection committee of city staff evaluated proposals in the context of the purpose and requirements of the grant program. 29 grants were submitted for over 1.6 million in requests. The committee came to a consensus on their recommendations to fund 5 new organizations to make up the new grant cohort. The full program budget is $248,319. 80% of the organizations selected are led by people of the communities that they serve, and 100% of the project leaders are from the communities they serve. 60% are led by people with a disability, and 60% are BIPOC led. Next slide, please. So I will go through the new grant partners. First, we have Street Roots. Street Roots is a nonprofit 501c3 organization in Portland that publishes a weekly alternative newspaper sold by people experiencing houselessness and poverty to earn an income. Their Civic Circles program seeks to create engagement between housed and unhoused neighbors led by Street Roots ambassadors, who are individuals that draw from their experience with houselessness. Ambassadors will guide housed neighbors in skills around trauma-informed communication and de-escalation, helping them understand daily struggles faced by unhoused people. Next slide, please. The Curiosity Paradox is a consultancy started by Access artists Grant Miller and Jonathan Paradox Lee. These facilitators follow the legacy of radical disabled-led expertise, which suggests that as disabled people, that they are the best designers of their liberation, and disabled living has worth and beauty. Their program, DisRep, will explore disability art and justice through a series of virtual workshops. This is an anti-ableist, anti-racist, queer, and trans-positive space centering the needs and voices of the disability community. Next slide, please. Black and Beyond the Binary Collective is a fiscally sponsored project of the Southeast Uplift Neighborhood Services Incorporated. It's dedicated to advocacy and healing for transgender and gender variant Oregonians who are Black and have lived experiences as member of the African diaspora. Their project, Community Safety Conversations, focus on the gaps in learning on community safety and the Black, transgender, and queer experiences. Next slide, please. Vo is a radical educator of 11 years in over 20 countries in inclusion, racial justice, intercultural communication, trauma-informed care, de-escalation, and restorative justice. They are queer, disabled, a child of refugees, an immigrant, and speak 4 languages. Their program, Anti-Racist Trauma-Informed Strategies, will be trauma-informed resilience-building facilitation training, inclusive of disability justice, harm reduction, and LGBTQIA+ lenses, and practices for building transformative justice application and skills. And next slide, please. Our 5th cohort member is Bridge Pamoja. Bridge Pamoja works to strengthen the bonds between individuals of the African diaspora and Africa. They elevate their collective voice and increase awareness of and access to resources that help address the unique needs of our community from a faith-based perspective. Their programming, Bridging the Divide, Healing and Empowerment for African Americans and African Immigrants, is a community-driven effort to bridge cultural divisions between the African immigrant and African American communities through storytelling, community building, and educational convenings. Next slide, please. Our visions for the future of this grant. Our vision for the future of this grant is sustained municipal support for the development of resources and partnerships that provide publicly accessible, no-cost access to skill building around conflict resolution and communication training. This includes multicultural, multilingual, community-specific engagement, community mediation, reflective listening, de-escalation, nonviolent communication, facilitation, disability justice community dialogue, community organizing, transformative justice, restorative justice, civic engagement, and anti-racism work. I want to thank everyone for listening to me today, and I invite any members of the council to ask questions if they have.
Commissioner Mapps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Carly, for that presentation. Looks like you have a lot of exciting programs in the pipeline. I was just wondering could you describe to us the systems that you use to evaluate how well these programs work at the end of the funding period?
So at the end of the funding period, we will be compiling all of the quarterly reports that are submitted by our grant cohort. And we have, after each event, cohort members will compile community feedback or participant feedback. And so we have all that data and we have all that information. So at the end of this, it hasn't ended yet. We actually still have programming that's ongoing. Once that's over with, we will compile that data and put it together. From what I can see, the feedback is overall very positive. People attend these trainings and they are oftentimes delving into very difficult and very profound and impactful conversations. And I think it has the ability to be very moving, and people come out with skills. And so overall, I have seen just anecdotally from the feedback that I receive is that it is these are positive experiences that people have.
And I know you covered it in your presentation, but can you remind me again, what are the specific goals of this program? What are the outcomes you're looking for?
So what the goals of this program are to provide a place, provide a platform, provide new solutions. We have to have new tools for that. And I think that these are things that new solutions, we have to have new tools for that. And I think that these are things that everyone can benefit from, whether you are whether you're working in a professional or personal capacity, whether you're dealing with interpersonal, whether you're dealing with conflict in your professional life. I think that these are skills and these are this is information that we would like to make sure that is accessible to the public. And so that is the main goal to this program. We also want to make sure that these courses and these workshops are accessible to people with disabilities, people for who English is not the first language. And thirdly, we want to also galvanize or activate a network of cohort members so that they can activate a network of cohort members so that they can continue their work beyond this grant period with each other and with the public. So those are the three main goals of this grant program.
And do you have a sense, I'm sure I know some of these programs, so I know that they do good work. Do you have a sense of whether or not the programs are kind of addressing the goals that you're trying to get at? Like have we reduced conflict in the community by virtue of the set of programs that we're going to fund today?
I think that what what I see as people provide feedback to the facilitators that have worked with them over the course of the classes and the workshops that they are attending, is that they have come out with concrete skills that they can employ in their daily lives. And so I would say that, it is a success if we provide somebody with the ability to learn how to deal with conflict, and they use those skills every single day. And so I imagine at the end of this, I imagine that's something that once you use it, you maybe don't even know you're using it.
Yeah.
But I think that the idea is to make sure that people feel as though they've been changed and that they have gained something from this experience. I feel like that once this grant period has ended at the end of June, we will then be able to essentially survey the participants whose contact information we have for the most part, about how this has impacted them over the last, since they've engaged in their facilitation training, since they've engaged in their training. And so they can say right after that they've got something out of it, but we won't really know until maybe that experience is sort of, or those skills have been applied in real life. But I think these are positive reactions to what they learned.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Commissioner Hardesty, for going with the flow here. I realized this was an ordinance that was passed before I was on council, and I was just delighted to see that it was on the agenda, and I wanted to make sure we had time to give it some life. So thank you, Director Rhee, and your presentation, Carly Smith. It was so helpful. I was taken with, one, congratulations to the recipients. It was stiff competition because you had 29 requests. And I was taken with some of the recipients because I like all of us, were trying to connect the dots to our community assets. And when I hear that Street Roots is receiving an award and knowing the skill sets that they have and how they implement their mission, and later today we'll be moving forward on the steps that we need to take to find sites and land across the city in neighborhoods. And so, having Street Roots as a partner to help with some of the conflict negotiation that inevitably will take place when you make necessary bold moves. It's just great to hear that. And so I was really listening to hear how these investments really are community assets and how we can connect the dots and have more leverage. So I hope that you're okay with Commissioner thinking like this and providing some feedback such as that. Is that a fair way to do our work together?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. I do have a question because there's been, speaking of conflicts, there's been, change always gives everyone an opportunity to have some conflicts. And so my curiosity, and that's a good thing, my curiosity is how are the neighborhood associations invited into some of these offerings? And I just wanted to hear about the attendance and if they're accessing these conflict negotiation trainings, if you will. So all Portlanders can pick up new tools.
So to answer your question, all Portlanders are welcome to access this training, and it is free and open to the public. And that is the most important aspect of this program, is that the current courses, the current trainings are offered on our website, accessible for anyone to join. There's links to the various partner registration websites. So these are absolutely open to all, and neighborhood association members are 100% welcome to participate in these classes. They have been up until this point, and they will be going forward. And we definitely, have a wonderful network of neighborhood coalitions, and so we think that this is something that not just in neighborhood associations, but everyone in Portland can benefit from.
Thank you, Carly. I really appreciate that. I'd like to live in the world of and And I always thought it was really a great opportunity to continue to build those bridges with the community organizations and the assets for decades and decades that the neighborhood associations have offered. So just seeing building those bridges is really important. Anyway, I really appreciate hearing some more details about this, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Very good. Is there any public testimony on this item, Keelan?
No one signed up for this item.
Very good. Thank you all for the presentation. Thank you, Director Reed. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. To not slow down getting these dollars out the door, I'd like to propose we add an emergency clause so we could pass this today.
It already has an emergency clause.
Oh, good. Then I guess we don't have to add it. Thank you.
It's pre-ready mixed. Please call the roll.
Ryan,
Aye.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Maps,
Aye.
Rubio,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you very much. It's approved. Thank you very much for a great presentation. Colleagues, I have a quick announcement. I'd like to make an announcement related to next week's council agenda. My office will be bringing forward a proclamation next week for Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Community members are requesting a time certain for this item, and I'm confirming that verbally today since it's past the deadline to do so in writing. The time certain for the proclamation will be 10:55 a.m. next Wednesday, May 5th, for 10 minutes. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned until 2 p.m. We'll see you then. Thank you, everybody.